Imagine this.
Okay.
You're in the heart of Soviet Moscow.
Uh-huh.
It's the Cold War.
Right.
The KGB.
Yeah.
They're watching every move you make.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Now imagine
Okay.
that you're so disillusioned with the system
Right.
that you decide to contact the enemy,
Wow.
the CIA.
That's risky.
That's exactly what Adolf Tolkachev did.
Really?
And he became known as the billion-dollar spy.
I mean, it sounds unbelievable.
It does, right. It's a true story.
Yeah.
We have declassified CIA files,
Mm-hmm.
and this book by David Hoffman
Okay.
called The Billion-Dollar Spy.
The billion-dollar spy.
And that's what we're diving into today.
I'm excited.
This seemingly ordinary Soviet radar engineer
Okay.
became one of the CIA's most valuable assets
Wow.
during the Cold War.
Okay.
But how did it all begin?
Yeah, how did it?
Well, our story starts in January 1977
All right.
at a gas station in Moscow. And Tolkachev spots the CIA's Moscow station chief,
Okay.
a man he's never met before.
So this is their first encounter.
Yeah.
Bold move.
And he slips him a note.
A note.
Yeah, basically saying, hey,
Okay.
I want to talk to someone important
Uh-huh.
in the American government in secret.
Oh, wow.
I mean, can you imagine the nerves?
I can't even.
Just
Wow.
incredible.
Yeah.
This is the height of the Cold War,
Right.
a time of intense paranoia and suspicion
Absolutely.
on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So for Tolkachev to even think about
Yeah.
contacting the CIA,
Yeah.
let alone directly approaching a high-ranking officer,
Right.
incredibly risky.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
So risky.
What happened next?
Well, the CIA doesn't exactly roll out the red carpet for him.
No.
They're skeptical.
Makes sense.
They were operating in a hostile environment
Yeah.
under constant KGB surveillance.
Right.
And their first thought was,
Yeah.
is this a trap?
Uh-huh.
Is this some kind of KGB dangle?
Oh.
Like a fake defector
Yeah.
designed to expose our officers?
I see.
So despite Tolkachev
Okay.
basically waving his hands,
Uh-huh.
saying, hey, I have top secret information
Okay.
on Soviet radar technology,
Interesting.
the CIA initially hesitates.
Oh, wow.
They even had a stand-down order
They did.
on Moscow operations at the time.
So they were being extra cautious.
Extra cautious.
Yeah.
They had already suffered setbacks in Moscow.
Oh, so they had lost assets before
They had
to the KGB.
to the KGB.
That makes sense.
They were not about to jump into another potential compromise.
Right.
And that's where Tolkachev's persistence really comes in.
Really?
He doesn't just give up.
He doesn't.
After that initial attempt,
Okay.
over the next year,
Mm-hmm.
he makes multiple attempts to contact the CIA,
Oh.
leaving notes,
Okay.
trying to hand off packages.
He was persistent.
Really committed to this path,
Yeah.
no matter the risk.
That's incredible.
So
Yeah.
who was this man willing to risk everything?
Right. Who was he?
Who was Adolf Tolkachev.
Yeah.
Now, he was a 50-year-old radar engineer
Okay.
at a top-secret Soviet institute.
So he had access to
Now, hey-
sensitive information.
Yes, and on the surface,
Uh-huh.
seemed to live a pretty ordinary life.
Really?
He enjoyed outdoor activities,
Okay.
fishing, hunting,
Mhm.
skiing.
So a typical outdoorsy
Right.
Soviet citizen.
You wouldn't suspect
It's
anything
like you're there.
out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But as we're learning,
Right.
there was a lot simmering beneath the surface.
Okay.
And to understand that,
Yeah.
we need to look at the experiences that shaped his worldview,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the experiences of his wife,
Okay. His wife.
Natasha.
Natasha.
Her family was directly impacted by Stalin's brutal purges.
Oh, wow.
Her mother was executed,
Oh, my goodness.
and her father was sent to a gulag,
Terrible.
all victims of a system that showed no mercy.
Wow.
That's a level of trauma that resonates through generations.
I can only imagine.
And you can imagine how this shared history fueled their resentment towards the Soviet regime.
Yeah, absolutely.
It planted the seeds of dissent,
Right.
this belief that the system was fundamentally corrupt and unjust.
Right.
But there's another crucial event
Okay.
that pushed Tolkachev toward espionage.
Really?
The defection of a Soviet pilot to Japan with a MiG-25 fighter jet in 1976.
Oh, wow.
This defection sent shockwaves through the Soviet military establishment.
Yeah.
The MiG-25 was their most advanced interceptor at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and its technology was a closely guarded secret.
Right.
So the loss of this aircraft
Okay.
and the potential for its technology to be analyzed by the West
Yeah.
was a major blow.
Makes sense.
And for Tolkachev,
Uh-huh.
this event was a turning point.
Okay.
He saw an opportunity to strike at the heart of the Soviet military,
Wow.
to expose their vulnerabilities,
Right.
to use his knowledge
Okay.
of their most sensitive technology
Yeah.
against them.
I see.
Now, you mentioned that he was a radar engineer.
I did.
What was his specific role?
He worked at the Phasotron Design Bureau,
Okay.
a critical institute responsible for developing advanced radar systems for Soviet military aircraft.
So he's right at the heart of the Soviet military-industrial complex.
He was.
Working on the very technology
Right.
that the MiG-25 defection
Mm-hmm.
exposed as a potential weakness.
That's incredible.
And what's particularly significant
Okay.
is that the Soviets, in response to this defection,
Yeah.
were scrambling to upgrade their radar systems,
Okay.
making Tolkachev's knowledge even more valuable.
I see.
It's like he's holding the keys to the kingdom, so to speak,
Yeah.
at a time when the Soviets are trying to fortify their defenses.
Makes sense.
But while Tolkachev is wrestling with his conscience,
Okay.
navigating the risks of contacting the CIA,
Right.
the CIA officers in Moscow
Mm-hmm.
are facing their own set of challenges.
Yeah. I bet.
They're living a constant game of cat and mouse with the KGB.
Wow.
Imagine living under 2047 surveillance,
Yeah.
knowing that even the most mundane activities,
Yeah.
like going to the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
taking a walk,
Right.
are being monitored.
Constantly watched.
It sounds exhausting,
I can't imagine.
like living in a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Did they have any sense of normalcy in their lives?
Not really.
No.
They had to be constantly vigilant,
Right.
always aware of the potential for compromise.
Right.
The KGB employed various tactics
Ah.
to disrupt their routines and keep them off balance.
Oh, wow.
We've heard stories about the KGB stealing shoes
Oh, yeah.
from CIA officers' apartments.
Was that a common tactic?
It might sound strange, but yes, it was.
Right.
The KGB would often resort to these seemingly petty acts of harassment
Uh-huh.
to create a sense of unease,
Right?
to remind the CIA officers that they were constantly being watched.
It's almost comical,
It is.
yet unsettling at the same time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just petty harassment, was it?
No, it wasn't.
They used more sophisticated methods of surveillance as well.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Their apartments were often bugged with listening devices.
Okay.
Their phones were tapped.
Mm-hmm.
They were frequently followed by KGB tails.
Oh, wow.
They even had KGB psychologists profiling them,
Really?
trying to understand their weaknesses and exploit them.
That's intense.
Sounds incredibly stressful,
Yeah.
like living in a fishbowl
Uh-huh.
with an invisible audience,
Right.
constantly judging your every move.
Judging your every move.
And their work environment.
Okay.
The Moscow station itself
Yeah.
was a far cry from the glamorous image
Right.
we often associate with espionage.
I bet.
In the book,
Okay.
it's described as a small, cramped,
Uh-huh.
windowless space on the 7th floor of the U.S. Embassy,
Wow.
designed to be as secure and inconspicuous as possible,
Right.
but also isolating and claustrophobic.
Yeah.
They even had music constantly playing
They did.
to mask their conversations
Oh, wow.
from potential eavesdropping.
Right. See.
So you have Tolkachev,
Right.
this disgruntled Soviet engineer
Uh-huh.
with a treasure trove of secrets,
Yeah.
determined to make contact with the CIA.
Okay.
And you have the CIA
Mm-hmm.
operating in this pressure cooker environment,
Right.
trying to sift through potential threats
Yeah.
and assess the validity of Tolkachev's offer.
Oh, wow.
What happens next?
Yeah, what does happen next?
Well,
Okay.
that's where Tolkachev takes a leap of faith.
Okay.
He decides to provide concrete proof of his
Okay.
value.
I mean,
Proof.
Wow.
A glimpse into the intelligence he possesses.
Okay.
And it's this decision
Yeah.
that will ultimately change the course of his life.
Oh, wow.
And perhaps
Yeah.
even the course of the Cold War.
Wow, this is getting good.
So we left off with Tolkachev
Yeah.
dangling this tantalizing bit of intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
hoping to convince the CIA he's the real deal.
Right.
What was it about this information that finally caught their attention?
Remember that MiG-25 defection we talked about?
Yeah.
Tolkachev revealed that he had detailed knowledge
Okay.
of how the Soviets were redesigning their radar system in response to that incident.
I see.
And he specifically mentioned something called look-down, shoot-down radar.
Okay.
Look-down, shoot-down.
That sounds,
Pretty technical.
yeah, pretty technical.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us? What does that
Sure.
mean?
So essentially this new radar technology
Okay.
would allow Soviet fighter jets
Uh-huh.
to detect and target enemy aircraft flying below them.
Oh, wow.
Before this was a major blind spot,
I see.
a huge tactical disadvantage.
So with this new radar, Soviet pilots would have a much clearer picture of the airspace.
Exactly.
Even planes trying to hide low to the ground.
That's right.
Wow.
It had the potential to redefine air combat,
Really?
handing the Soviets a significant advantage.
No wonder the CIA finally started paying attention. This wasn't just some disgruntled employee
No,
griping about working conditions.
this was much bigger.
This was a potential gold mine of intelligence.
Especially for the Pentagon.
The Pentagon was very interested in anything that could shift the balance of power
Of course.
during the Cold War.
Right.
And Tolkachev's offer seemed almost too good to be true.
Almost too good to be true.
But there's a huge hurdle, right?
Yes, there's a big one.
They've got this potential asset,
Okay.
this incredibly valuable source of information,
Uh-huh.
stuck in the heart of Soviet Moscow
Right.
under constant KGB surveillance.
How do you even begin to work with someone like that?
How do they even begin to build a working relationship with him,
Right.
let alone get information out of the country?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
It's one thing to acknowledge someone's potential as an asset.
Right.
It's quite another to actually run an operation,
Yeah.
especially in such a hostile environment.
So how did they do it?
Yeah, how did they pull this off?
How did they solve this seemingly impossible problem?
This is where the world of tradecraft comes in.
Tradecraft.
The techniques and methods of espionage.
Okay.
And in Tolkachev's case, the CIA had to be particularly creative.
So no James Bond gadgets or
No.
secret underground layers?
Not quite.
What did actual Cold War tradecraft look like?
It was a mix of classic spy techniques
Okay.
and ingenious adaptations.
Okay.
One of the first challenges was establishing a secure way to contact Tolkachev.
Right.
They couldn't just call him up
Oh,
or
dear.
send him an email.
Right. This is the 1970s.
Exactly.
So no late night calls
Nope.
or casual text messages.
Not quite.
What did they do?
They relied on a technique called a brush pass.
A brush pass?
A brush pass.
What was that?
It's a method as old as espionage itself,
Uh-huh.
but surprisingly effective.
Okay, so how does that work?
Imagine two people
Okay.
walking past each other
Uh-huh.
on a crowded street,
Mm-hmm.
and in a split second,
Yeah.
a small object,
Oh.
like a note or a film canister,
Okay.
is passed from one hand to the other.
Okay.
It's quick,
Uh-huh.
discreet,
Mm-hmm.
and if done correctly, very difficult to detect.
So basically a sleight of hand in the middle of a busy Moscow street.
Essentially, yes.
That seems awfully risky.
It is risky,
Yeah.
but it was often the best way to exchange small items or messages
Okay.
without attracting attention.
Right.
Especially in a city like Moscow,
Yeah.
where there were always crowds and a sense of anonymity.
I can see how it would be easy to get lost in the crowd.
Exactly.
So they're using these brush passes to send messages to Tolkachev.
Right.
But what about the actual intelligence?
Yeah.
The technical documents, the schematic?
Yeah, what about those?
That can't possibly fit in a quick handoff.
You're right. That's where the operation gets even more complex.
Oh.
They needed a way for Tolkachev
Uh-huh.
to secretly photograph the sensitive documents he had access to.
Yeah.
Remember, this is long before digital cameras and smartphones.
So we're talking old school film cameras.
Yeah.
The kind with rolls of film you have to develop.
That's right.
How did he manage to sneak those into a top secret Soviet facility?
He couldn't just walk in with a bulky camera bag.
Right.
They needed something small,
Okay.
concealable,
Uh-huh.
and easy to use.
Right.
And surprisingly, they found the perfect solution,
Right.
not in some high-tech spy lab,
Okay.
but in a simple hobby shop.
A hobby shop.
A hobby shop.
What kind of camera did they find there
You're right.
that could handle top secret Soviet documents?
It was a Minox camera.
A Minox.
It's a miniature camera originally marketed to amateur photographers.
Okay.
It was tiny,
Uh-huh.
barely bigger than a pack of gum.
Wow.
And it took surprisingly good pictures for its size.
I've seen those.
You have.
Yeah, they're so small.
They are.
They could easily fit in a pocket
Right.
or be disguised as something else.
Exactly.
Oh.
The CIA provided Tolkachev with a Minox. Okay.
Along with high-resolution film and developing chemicals.
So he could discreetly take it to work,
Yes.
photograph documents,
Uh-huh.
and then develop the film himself.
That's right.
So he's essentially running his own miniature spy photography lab,
He is.
right under the noses of the KGB.
Right under their noses.
That's incredible.
It is pretty remarkable.
But once he has the film developed,
Yeah?
how does he get it back to the CIA?
Good
They
questions.
can't exactly meet for a coffee and film swap.
No, they can't.
So how do they do it?
That's where another classic espionage technique comes into play.
Okay.
The dead drop.
The dead drop.
The dead drop.
Okay.
It's not as dramatic as it sounds.
Okay.
It's simply a secret location
Mm-hmm.
where one person leaves an item for another person to pick up later.
Okay.
It could be anything from a hollowed-out book
Okay.
to a loose brick in a wall.
Uh-huh.
Any place inconspicuous where a small object could be hidden.
So like a secret mailbox
Right.
for spies?
Tolkachev leaves the film.
Yep.
The CIA swings by and picks it up.
That's the idea.
So simple.
But it required meticulous planning and execution.
Oh, of course.
They had to choose locations that were both secure and easily accessible.
Right.
And they had to time their pickups perfectly
It
to avoid being detected.
sounds like a constant game of chess.
It does, doesn't it?
Trying to anticipate the KGB's
Yeah.
moves
Right.
and stay one step ahead.
Exactly. A high-stakes game
Yeah.
with very real consequences
For sure.
if they made a wrong move.
So Tolkachev is taking pictures,
Yeah.
developing film, leaving it in dead drops.
Right.
The CIA is retrieving the intel,
Yeah.
processing it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is happening right under the KGB's watchful eyes.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is mind-boggling
It is.
that they were able to pull this off.
And what's even more remarkable is that this operation,
Yeah.
this delicate dance of espionage,
Hmm.
went on for years.
So we've been talking about this intricate web of espionage.
Yeah.
This delicate dance
Right.
between Tolkachev and the CIA.
Uh-huh.
But there's always this underlying tension, right?
There
And
is.
spy stories.
Yeah.
That sense of impending danger.
Yeah,
That knowledge that things can't go smoothly forever.
of course.
So what eventually happened?
Well, despite the meticulous planning
Right.
and tradecraft,
Right.
there were close calls,
Okay.
security breaches,
Mm.
and a growing sense of paranoia within the CIA.
I bet.
It was only a matter of time before something went wrong.
Was there a specific event
Yeah, what was it?
that tipped off the KGB?
Well,
A particular misstep that led to Tolkachev's downfall?
there are different theories about what ultimately exposed him.
Okay.
One of the most compelling theories
Uh-huh.
suggests that there was a mole within the CIA.
Mole agent.
A mole.
Someone within the CIA working against their own people.
Someone who betrayed Tolkachev
Wow.
and other Soviet assets to the KGB.
That's a chilling thought.
It is.
If there was a mole,
Yeah.
were they ever identified?
Well, that's still shrouded in mystery.
Right?
There are suspicions,
Okay.
but no concrete evidence has ever been publicly revealed.
So the identity of the mole,
Right.
if there was one,
If there was one.
remains a secret.
It does.
So the KGB,
Yeah.
perhaps tipped off by this mole,
Right.
starts to close in on Tolkachev.
They
What
did.
happened next?
They intensified their surveillance on him,
Okay.
monitoring his every move, hoping to catch him in the act of espionage.
And what about the CIA officers working with him?
Yeah.
Did they have any idea that things were unraveling?
There were signs,
Like what?
warnings from other assets,
Yeah.
intercepted communications that suggested something was amiss.
Okay.
But it was often difficult to separate real threats from disinformation,
Right.
especially in the murky world of Cold War espionage.
It must have been a constant state of anxiety,
It was.
trying to decipher what was real
Yeah.
and what was a trap.
Exactly.
And what was Tolkachev's fate?
What-
How did it all end?
In June of 1985,
Okay.
after nearly a decade of working for the CIA,
Wow.
Tolkachev was arrested by the KGB.
Arrested.
Arrested.
How did they finally catch him?
The exact circumstances of his arrest are still somewhat unclear.
Okay.
It's believed that the KGB,
Mm.
based on information from their sources,
Mm.
had been building a case against him for some time.
I see.
They likely wanted to gather as much evidence as possible
Right.
before making their move.
So after years of successfully evading their surveillance,
Right.
the KGB finally caught up with him.
They did.
What happened to him after his arrest?
He was put on trial for treason.
Okay.
A very public trial designed to send a clear message
I see.
to anyone else considering spying for the West.
It sounds more like a propaganda show
It does, doesn't it?
than a legitimate trial.
Yeah.
What was the verdict?
Well, it was a foregone conclusion.
Right.
Tolkachev was found guilty and sentenced to death.
Executed
Executed.
for providing information to the United States.
That's right.
That seems incredibly harsh,
It does.
even by Cold War standards.
It was a brutal end
Yeah.
for a man who believed he was acting out of conscience,
Right.
trying to expose what he saw as the flaws and injustices of the Soviet system.
Tolkachev was executed in 1986.
That's right.
His story, a tragic reminder of the human cost of the Cold War.
It is.
And what about his wife, Natasha?
Oh, yeah. Natasha.
We know she wasn't aware of his activities.
Right.
Did she face any repercussions?
Unfortunately, yes.
Really?
Despite her lack of involvement in Tolkachev's espionage, she was also arrested
Oh, wow.
and sentenced to internal exile.
Wow, that's just...
It really highlights the vindictive nature of the Soviet regime,
It does.
punishing not only the accused,
Right.
but also those closest to them.
It's heartbreaking
It is.
to have your life shattered,
Yeah.
your family torn apart,
Uh-huh.
all because of actions you had no part in.
It's really tragic.
It speaks volumes about the oppressive nature of the Soviet system.
It does.
So,
Yeah.
what was the ultimate impact
Right. What was the impact?
of Tolkachev's espionage?
Yeah.
Was it worth the risk,
Was it worth it?
the sacrifice?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier
I did.
that his intelligence was estimated to be worth billions of dollars.
Billions.
How did his information actually affect the course of the Cold War?
Tolkachev's intelligence provided the United States with invaluable insights into Soviet military capabilities, particularly in the area of radar technology.
Okay.
This information helped the U.S. develop countermeasures,
Uh-huh.
close the technology gap,
Mm-hmm.
and arguably gain a strategic advantage.
So in a way, his actions helped level the playing field
Right.
in this Cold War arms race.
It's certainly a plausible argument.
It's a strange paradox, isn't it?
It is.
A man driven by a hatred of the Soviet system may have inadvertently contributed to its eventual demise,
Right.
not through direct confrontation,
Mm-hmm.
but through the secret flow of information.
It's a testament to the complex and often unpredictable nature of history.
Yes.
Individual actions, even those taken in secrecy,
Right.
can have far-reaching consequences,
Yeah.
shaping the course of events in ways we may never fully comprehend.
Tolkachev's story is a powerful reminder
Yeah.
of the courage
The conviction.
and the high price paid by those
Right.
who dared to challenge the established order
Absolutely.
during the Cold War.
Yeah. It's a story that continues to resonate today.
It does.
In a world where information is power
Uh-huh.
and the struggle for technological dominance
Yeah.
is as relevant as ever.
It leaves us with a question to ponder.
A question.
In this new era of information warfare,
Yeah.
who are the modern-day Tolkachevs?
Good question.
The individuals risking everything
Oh, right.
to expose secrets and shape the course of history?
That's something to think about.
It is.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Of course.
into the remarkable
Yeah.
and tragic story
It is tragic.
of Adolf Tolkachev,
Yeah.
the billion-dollar spy.
The billion-dollar spy.
It was